Janine Turner, this is such a thrill for me to be in your home in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and to see how you live, and then to be talking with you about your directorial debut. This is a wonderful time in your life, isn't it?
It is, thank you. And it's an honor for me to be sitting here with you. I'm a big fan of yours, Bobbie, so it's mutual. It's an honor for me to have you in my home. And it's a very exciting time to be a director and a filmmaker. I'm very excited about it.
Now, is this something that you wanted to do for a long time, or did something just happen and you say, I'm going to direct this?
Well, it all started when I got my first 35mm camera with the interchangeable lenses, and I got all these long zoom lenses when I was going to make Cliffhanger. I was going to Italy. It was filmed in Italy. And the director photographer, David Fredericks, I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, "Now, do you want to take a picture or make a picture?" I'm like, oh, that's really cool. So I went around Rome, really zooming in, and all of a sudden my eyes, the directorial eyes started, and I took all these photographs in Italy and blew them up, and after that I caught kind of the bug that I wanted to direct. And then it was just an evolution. I found a story that I loved back in 1996, and then it just took time, so it's kind of been percolating.
The story then is A Trip in a Summer Dress. Is that the story?
Yes,
that you found?
The story is Trip in a Summer Dress, written by a Texas author, Annette Sanford.
And did you just stumble across the story, or?
Well, I read, they do readings, SMU with the Dallas Museum of Art do readings, and I read a short story, and I don't remember who handed the book to me, but someone handed me this book called Texas Bound, which is a collection of short stories printed by the SMU Press. And I was flipping through, reading the short stories one day, thinking maybe there'd be something in there I might like to direct, and I fell in love with this story that Annette wrote.
Then what was it that made you decide to do it as a short film?
Well, I didn't know, I knew I wanted to direct, but I didn't know when I went out there if I'd just fall flat on my face, and I remember having this moment where I was, gathering the crew and producers, and I realized I was going to be responsible for this whole, mirage of people, and I got a little bit frightened, but then I thought, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Mel Gibson started somewhere, and Barbra Streisand started somewhere, and I have to take this challenge. So a short film seemed logical to me, that I could go kind of test the waters without doing a whole feature. Besides, I could afford that.
The problem with the short film is, though, it's hard to get it shown, isn't it?
Yes, I'm hearing that you can put it on compilation DVDs that are sold at Blockbuster, and the Angelica is going to run it for me for about 6 days in November. But yes, I hear Europe is interested. It is limited as far as distribution is concerned. So I wanted it to be festivals. I can go to film festivals, and I can start mingling as a filmmaker with people. And I figured it would be my calling card, because whenever you say in Hollywood or anywhere, "Oh, I want to direct," people kind of roll their eyes, like, yeah, okay, another actress wants to direct. But I knew I had to prove that I could do it. So it's also my calling card.
Is there any possibility that this could be a feature-length film?
There is a possibility. Anything's a possibility. I really saw this story, though, as a short story. So a friend of mine in Hollywood watched it recently, and she called me. She said, "It has to be a movie. I want to know what happens. You have to make it into a movie." So maybe. I haven't really thought about that, but it could be.
When you decided to direct it, did you also decide to play one of the roles?
No, I didn't really want to be in the film. I wanted to just purely direct. I produced, directed, did location. When you're low budget, this is all under $20,000. I had to do everything from figuring out how to get the buses and everything on these little old country roads. And I didn't want to do that, but the actress at the last minute that I thought might be perfect looked so much like the other actress that had to play the 15-year-old daughter. They almost looked the same age. So at the last minute, I jumped in and played Mama.
And you have your daughter, Juliet, in it?
Yes. Now, that was coincidental. When I fell in love with this story, it was 1996, and she wasn't even born yet. And then I thought I'd do it, much earlier than I got around to doing it. And by the time we did it in 2003, the summer of 2003. All of a sudden, there she was, just the perfect age to play this little character on the bus. And she was with me all the time on sets anyway, so I thought, well, she might as well be in it.
Has she got the bug for acting?
Well, she's more of a natural than I think I ever thought about being at age 6. I was sweet in front of the camera and I could do what I was told, but I gave her some chewing gum, and boy, she was right in character. It was fun.
The short story was set in present day time, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Why did you decide to move it to the 50s?
Well, the story is actually timeless. The author never really mentions a time period, so it really could be any time. I chose to put it in the 1950s because I think that the subject matter of the movie is a little more pertinent in the 1950s.
But didn't that make it more expensive, or at least more trouble?
Oh, it made it, yes. It made it, having to find 1950s or 1940s cars, and the bus had to be a 1950s looking bus. But it also made it rich because with the costume designers, and I was so hands-on with everything. And we got to, put on little hats and gloves and old, I wore the little knee-high hose that I pushed down because they're poor in the country. And it gave it a lot of flavor. There was one shot that is a tree on my ranch, and instead of putting her in jeans, I put her in these flowing dresses because it was a great sort of juxtaposition, and it made it, I think it gave it a kind of an artsy feel.
Of all the directors you've known and worked with, is there any one director who has become your role model?
Well, I love Mel Gibson. I love Mel Gibson's passion, for lack of a better word, and his dedication to follow through with his vision. I've also heard that Barbra Streisand, I love her movies, and that she's such a perfectionist. A friend of mine in Hollywood told me that, she'll make sure that the pearls are just so, and when I was making this movie, I remembered that because, I want to make a picture, not just take a picture. So everything became important to me within the image, down to the way the scarf in the actress's hair was on the blanket. So Barbra Streisand was in the back of my head quite a bit.
Did you use all local actors and crew?
I did. My goal is to make movies in Texas, and I want to get them funded and film them right here, and I want to start trying to pass legislation so that we can get incentives. I'm working with, I met with the governor. I'm trying to get some movement that we can pass some incentives so the industry can come to Texas. And it was an entirely Texas crew and Texas cast, except for 2 members, but one of them was born in Texas, so it was okay. But it's the star of the movie, Kathleen Early, is my sister-in-law's sister that I grew up with in Euless, Texas. So it was all within the family.
What does Texas have to do then, Janine, to attract more filmmakers?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is keep up with our competition, because all of a sudden New Mexico and Florida, New York, Louisiana, they've all passed these incentives where you come and film in our state, and we'll give you 20% back on your dollar. So all of a sudden the ante has been raised, and we have to meet that. And then I really want to start kind of a grassroots movement of people talking to their representatives and their congressmen and women about how we can remain competitive, but also kind of just creating a society where artists and writers and filmmakers in Texas want to live here. A lot of people don't want to have to go to Hollywood. They would rather live here, and maybe we can create sort of a buzz and an artistic kind of community where we can make things happen.
A little bit of that is going on in the Hill Country, isn't it, and Austin?
Yes. It is. Austin's done a great job. And I really don't care where it happens in the state of Texas, as long as it's in the state of Texas. Of course, we'd love to have it up here in North Texas as well. And that's also why I thought maybe this movie would be a calling card, not only for me as a director, but for the state of Texas, because it shows how beautiful North Texas can be.
You mentioned that your ranch was one of the locations.
Yes.
And your ranch is where?
My ranch is 1 hour north of Dallas-Fort Worth. It's north of Denton, up by Lake Ray Roberts.
And then what other locations did you use?
Well, picking the locations was one of my favorite parts, and my daughter and I got in the car, and we would drive all the way. I used to go into my father's ranch. I used to pass this windmill on a dirt gravel road all the time, and I would watch the sun rise and set on this windmill. I thought, someday I want to film by that windmill. And when I realized there was a bus, and it's in the country, and back then, they didn't really have bus stops, I thought, oh, cool, we'll film right in front of this windmill. And then one of the houses I found by luck that was up by my house, and then the church, I knew I needed a church in the middle of nowhere, and I wanted cemeteries because I felt there's sort of a, in the story, the character's having to kind of realize there's a death to a certain area of her life. And I thought that would be very symbolic. So I called my local insurance man up in the area, and I said, do you know where there's a church in the middle of nowhere? And he's like, yeah, I do. And he hopped in the car, and we went and found this church out in the middle of nowhere, and that was a lot of fun finding the location. So they're all up in North Texas in that area.
Janine, you have the bug.
I do. I do.
Do you have another project in mind?
Well, I have some things tucked in the back of my head. I know I want to. I figure I'll get this movie launched, and around January I'll start really focusing on the next project. There are a few cattle baroness sort of projects that I would love to do because I own Longhorns too. So I love the whole Chisholm Trail Longhorn era. But I also want to do sort of Texas crimes of the heart. Yahoo, was it Yahoo Sister? What's that movie? Sister. That's it. Crimes of the Heart. Those sorts of movies that are Southern with women and men, and just a little bit of comedy would be fun for my next project.
Well, I'm sure that there will be a next and a next and a next. I can tell. You have the enthusiasm. This doesn't mean you're going to give up acting, does it?
No, but I think that, I've acted for so long now. I was in New York at 15, I was in LA at 17, and it's just a lot of the challenge is gone. It depends on who, if I'm working with Robert Altman, of course I'm intrigued and I'm challenged and it's a wonderful experience. But it's just sort of, I'm a little bit, bored is a bad word, but I just would like more of a challenge. And so I do still want to act, but it will depend on the project. I'm hoping to kind of be behind the camera, but also be in front of it as well.
This $20,000 budget just intrigues me. Most sets spend that much on Evian water, don't they?
True.
But were you able to pay your actors, or did they work for free, or what?
Well, they worked like back end. If it ever makes any money, then they get some. They'll be reimbursed. And there may be some hope for that actually. But everyone knew it was a project of love, and the North Texas film community really, really supported me, and I'm eternally grateful. I mean, everybody was so gracious. Panavision was gracious. Kodak, Video Post and Transfer. I mean, everyone just came on board and were willing to help with their services and their time free, and so it really helped make it what it is. Otherwise, I would have been out there with my, Canon XL1, changing the lenses myself. So I'm really grateful to my fellow producers, Rick Anderson and his wife Cher. He was a cinematographer on Walker, Texas Ranger for years, and Bob Coonrod is a producer actor here, and he brought his laptop to my house for 6 months, and we edited right here in the dining room. So people really, really, really were supportive, and that made it possible.
Have you entered in any film festivals?
I'm entering now. I'm waiting. I'm entering. It takes a few months to hear, but I just started. I just completed it in time to enter into the Sundance Film Festival, but it was in the Deep Ellum Film Festival, and I won an award there, so that was kind of fun.
Did you?
Yes.
The Short Film Award?
I won Best New Emerging Director.
Best New Emerging Director.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
Well, that's I would say, as we say in Texas, tall cotton for your first effort at directing.
I was very pleased.
That's great, Janine.
Thank you.
Well, I know we'll hear more from Janine, the director, and hopefully we'll hear from Janine, the actress, from time to time, too.
Oh, thank you very much.
Janine, thank you for inviting us into your home, and it's just great to be with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming.
That's a wonderful interview. Flying in and out of Dallas-Fort Worth.
Right, that's true. That's very true.
That she can get any place.
Yes.
And she has these 2 cutting horses, and she bought a ranch.
How much was just my right shoulder?
Yeah.
I'll sit up straight. No slouching.
And if you just start to answer, and then I'll wave you off.
Okay.
Okay. Janine, the short story is set in present day time. Why did you move it to the 50s?
Well, the piece was sort of timeless in the story, but I felt that the subject matter...
That's good. Okay. By moving it to the 50s, though, you increased the cost of everything, didn't you?
Well, yes, and definitely the challenge, because now I had to get 1950s everything, from costumes to cars, buses, but that made it fun.
Did you use all local actors and crew?
I did. All local actors and crew, except for 2 people, and one was born here, so only one.
With a $20,000 budget, were you able to pay people?
Not much. It's a promise for money later.
Okay. Your daughter Juliet is in this.
Yes, she is. And when I first bought the rights to the story, it was before she was even born, but it's good.
Was it always your intention to play a role as well as direct?
No, I wanted to just actually direct, but at the last minute I had to go in and...
That's good. Okay. What gave you the idea about directing?
When I bought my first camera, and when I was going to film in Cliffhanger in Italy, and the director of photography said to me, "Do you want to take a picture or make a picture?"
Okay, that's good. Okay. How did you first come upon this story?
Well, I was asked to do a reading at the Dallas Museum of Art called Texas Bound from a short story, and they handed me this book, Texas Bound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, we'll get into this. What is your long-range hope for making films?
Well, I want to make films, and I want to make them in Texas. And my hope is to pass some incentives with the legislature. And
okay. What does the state of Texas have to do to attract filmmakers?
Give them some money. we have to remain competitive with New Mexico and Florida and New Orleans, Louisiana. They all are giving 20% back. They're giving them great incentives.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right. Your ranch is one of the locations. Where is your ranch?
My ranch is 1 hour north of Dallas-Fort Worth, up near north of Gainesville, north of Denton.
Okay. You've already given that answer, so that's fine. Okay. Do you pattern your directing after any other director you might know?
Well, I love Mel Gibson's work because he has a vision and he's not afraid to follow through on this vision. And I also love Barbra Streisand's work.
That's good. Okay. The thing with the problem with a short film is there's no place to show it.
Well, that's true. I have heard that actually there are more and more avenues for distribution. They can put compilations, DVDs together and sell them at Blockbuster, and I hear Europe really likes that.
Have you entered your film in any festivals?
Yes, well, I am. I'm in the process. I've just started entry into festivals, and I was just in the Deep Ellum Film Festival.
Okay. I didn't ask you this, but I will now.
Okay.
At any point when you were at any time when you were directing this film, did you think, I've bitten off more than I can handle?
In editing was at first was very overwhelming to me. Piecing it all together, because in the story there were it was flashback in the present day, present day. So I found editing at first to be completely, it was mind-boggling to me. But then once my fellow producer came and brought his laptop to my house, it became fascinating. I grew to realize that is where the movie is made. And I changed it all around. I put it in chronological order, and then I went back and bookended it with one big flashback, and that became magical.
Is there any possibility that this will become a feature film?
I hadn't really thought about it at all until recently. Someone said, "What happens? I want to see more." So there is a possibility. I think it plays really, really well as a short film, but it could be. It could be.
Okay, that'll do it. Wonderful.
What a